Do you ever feel like you're standing at the end of one chapter, but you can't quite see what's coming next? So there's a feeling that I'd love to name, and it's important. It's not a crisis. It's not a sign that there's a failure or a mistake. It's not even that you feel unhappy, but this feeling of standing at the end of one chapter and you know a new one's going to begin, but you don't quite know what that's going to look like. You don't know exactly what it's going to be like. Maybe you've built something and you've worked really hard for it. And by most people's measures, it's working. But somewhere underneath all of that, something is quietly shifting. There's this pull towards doing something, being something different. And it's a sense that that version of you, the one who built all of that, they were built for that chapter. But now you're different. You've grown and this new chapter is calling you. You might not have said it out loud yet because it's kind of confusing. And you might feel like, oh no, I worked so hard for that version. I achieved something. I made great progress, but now I'm ready for something new. If any of this sounds familiar, then this episode is for you. So let me tell you a story. This is how I knew that my corporate chapter was ending. It wasn't a huge dramatic moment. It was slow. It was one of those slow burns that all of a sudden, when you turn around it, you can't tell exactly when it started. It was that realization that arrived bits and pieces at a time. And I kind of kept avoiding it because when I had to admit that it was time for something different, that was scary, right? But what I was finally starting to admit was about burnout, that inch by inch kind of burnout that sort of chips away at you. It's the kind that takes you so slowly, you don't even notice that it's happening. You start to lose the things that you thought were permanent. You start to feel a little hollow, drained, exhausted, and even numb and lethargic. And when I finally admitted it, that it was time to make a change, what followed was pretty scary. Because I'd been following the rules, keep climbing the ladder, accumulate the titles, stay in the structure, and everything was going to be fine. I kept telling myself, just like the Pink Floyd song, the song Money, get a good job with good pay and you're okay. And that was what was supposed to be a satisfying life. But guess what? I just wasn't anymore. I was a director, I was senior leader in corporate. And I had pinned so much of who I was to that title, my team, my salary, the perks. And then when I started to question it, I didn't really know who I was without that. I was afraid of losing the safety, that safety of a good job, the safety of the paycheck and the bonuses and the benefits, that predictable 9 to 5. But if I'm really being honest, that 9 to 5 was really like 7 to 7 and weekends too. And then I had a thought and it changed something. I realized that I could be laid off from that good job at any moment. In corporate, it used to be a good job. It was safe, but now life has changed. And many of us, no matter how much heart and how much care we put into our role and into building a great team, we are often really, honestly, just a line on a spreadsheet. And when the word comes down that it's time to cut costs, it's time to right size or do a reorg or whatever they call it at the moment, your job, your role could be gone with a click. Yeah, just a click of the button. You're that line on the spreadsheet. So all of a sudden, I realized that having a job wasn't really that safe choice because I wasn't fully in control of that role. I wasn't fully in control of it. I could do a lot to be a great team player, but ultimately my job could have been eliminated at any time. So that safety that I had been protecting wasn't actually real. I'd been organizing my whole life around something that never was actually solid. That was the moment that my chapter ended. I didn't quit when I figured that out, but when I really understood it, I realized that it was time to start making changes. And the thing that I was staying for wasn't actually what I thought it was. So here's what I want you to know. If you're standing at that growth edge, like you're the end of one chapter and you're going to something else. Maybe it's a pivot. Maybe it's a big shift. We don't know. Outgrowing something that you worked hard for is a very disorienting feeling. But it's also a matter of perspective because from the outside, that thing looks like, wow, I put so much energy into it. Shouldn't I be grateful for everything that I created? Like, shouldn't I be grateful and use that as kind of a justification to stay? Like, you're saying somehow that because I want to change, are you thinking that that means that something that you did in that last chapter was wrong? Maybe it was a mistake? But I want you to consider that this is an evolution, right? You are growing, you are evolving. And so, of course, there will come ends of a chapter. So, one chapter is going to end and another one is going to begin. Doesn't mean by any means that the old thing was invalid. It just means that you've evolved. This is growth and this is normal. I worked with a client not so long ago. She knew she wanted to be a coach. She wanted a life and a business built on her terms, something that was built around her own values, her own choices, her own freedom and autonomy. And this really mattered. And she had spent years doing that thing that she was supposed to do, climbing the corporate ladder, performing, fitting in, taking those stretch assignments. And then she burned out. And again, for her, the burnout was subtle. It was quietly chipping away at those things that were her bit by bit, day by day, until one time she shared, my gosh, like I knew I really needed to change and that I wanted to be a coach when I was burnt out because I kind of looked in the mirror and realized I didn't recognize who I was anymore. So she did something courageous. She decided that that burnout didn't mean there was something wrong with her. It wasn't a punishment for something she had done wrong. It was a signal. That burnout was a signal that that chapter was over and the next one was waiting for her. That's what it can look like when you're outgrowing who you were, a recalibration. And I want to tell you, you don't have to do things drastically. You don't have to justify wanting something different. You don't have to wait until that old thing completely falls apart before you can want something different. You don't have to prove that the last chapter was wrong to close it. You can just allow it to be and to say, hey, I've evolved, I've grown. And you don't have to have the whole next chapter all figured out before you take that first step. Here's what I say to my clients, the ones who feel like they want something different and they're worried in a way that it's a bit of a betrayal of the things that they've already been working on. Listen, if that's you, let me share the same message that I share with my clients. You did your best to get to where you're at and you did a good job. And now you know different. And if you had known differently then, you would have done different. But you didn't. You did exactly what you knew. You knew how to do what you did with where you were at the time. There's no way that can be failure. It's just how life works. Now you've evolved, you've grown, you've stretched. So of course, you're going to want something new. It's normal to want something new as you grow. And it's normal also to not know exactly what that's going to look like. No one gets to stay stagnant. That's not how life works, right? It's not how we're built. We learn, we grow, we become people with different needs than the ones we had 10 years ago. So wanting something new is a sign of evolution. Now you know different. So let's make it happen. So here's what the next chapter can be built from. It's not from nothing. You're not starting over from fresh. You're starting a new chapter with a lifetime experience, a lifetimes of skills and strength. You're not actually starting over. You're just turning the page on that old chapter. Starting something real means you get really honest about who you really are underneath all of this and accepting that this is exactly who you're supposed to be. You are not your title. You are not your credentials. You are not the version of yourself that was shaped to fit into somebody else's idea of success. So, what makes you you? What are your values? What do you really want? Those questions. Who are you? What do you actually want? They're not easy questions. We know that. And we're not going to always come up with the perfect answer in 5 minutes, right? Many people have been asking themselves these kinds of questions for years. I remember as a young adult, one of the main questions that I had in my life was, what's my purpose in life? What am I supposed to be doing in the world, right? And it took a long time for me to come to an answer that felt really solid. And guess what? My purpose has also evolved as I've grown. So you may never have asked yourself some of those questions. And if you're here and this is one of the first episodes that you're listening to, welcome. You're in the right place. This is a place where we ask ourselves questions. We give ourselves a space to answer in the way that's right for us. So these questions are the foundation for everything. Everything real gets built from your answers. Let me ask you the questions again, because I've kind of gone through them in a different way. What makes you you? What are your values? What's really important to you? And what do you actually want? Spend a little bit of time considering those questions for yourself. So remember, you aren't starting over. You are starting a new chapter. You're starting from a lifetime of experience, from years of experience, from all those lessons that you've learned. You've built so much capacity along the way. So this transition, this feeling of going into your next chapter isn't a crisis. It is a turning towards, like an orienting towards more of what is actually true for you right now. And then you're going to build from here. So if you're standing at the edge of a new you, if you can feel that pull of the next chapter, this is the kind of work that I do with my clients. We're not just helping you build a business. Yes, we deal with the strategies and the tactics, but we also deal with the coaching, the mindset part of it, the energetic part of it, helping people find what's really true about themselves and then building that coaching business from there so that what you build actually fits. It fits you. I'm so glad you're here. I've got space in my private practice right now for one or two more clients. And if that's you, then we should talk. I'll put a link in the episode notes so you can book a time and let's see how I can support you best. Thanks again for spending time with me, and I will see you on the next episode.